I started this project of a travel journal entirely dedicated to my time in the Nordic countries a year ago, and I've been working on it in my spare time in between other projects and other journals. Today, while I add the final chapter about Sweden, and before I show you the full flip through, I thought about recapping some of the lessons that I learned along the journey, with tips and advice that you can use if you want to approach this kind of journaling and make your own project. Hi everyone, this is Carlo and welcome back to my channel. The first thing I want to talk about is how well the choice of using a concertina style sketchbook worked on this particular project. On a regular journal, usually the storytelling develops through spreads of 2 pages, making you feel sometimes compelled to fit a paragraph or close a concept within the 2 pages. A concertina structure allows you to expand the spread to 3 or more pages if you need to, without making it look too fragmented. It's actually a great format to develop a concept, still having small chapters that work on their own, but having a cohesive narrative that unveils and unfolds when you open the journal completely. And ultimately it has fewer pages, which makes it perfect to host a project that is finished within itself. It also makes the finished journal amazing to display on a shelf. I will show you at the end of the video. While I start sketching the images for Sweden, another lesson that I learned since I started travel journaling and that I want to mention again is how it's really not important to draw urban sketches of monuments and architecture, especially if it's not your forte or if you feel intimidated by it. An illustrated journal is meant to evoke your feelings and your experience of a city, so focus on illustrating particular moments that you've lived, some dishes that you tried, something that tells a story and will remind you straight away of your time in that city, instead of trying to make a perfect architectural masterpiece of a famous monument that at the end of the day didn't leave you much in terms of experience value. You can still add monuments and buildings as photos to complete the storytelling, but with your illustrations feel free to have fun as much as possible. Also, an important mantra that you have to keep in mind while creating an illustrated travel journal is simplify to evoke. Every time you have to draw repeated little details, you always have the choice of making your life easy, drawing simplified patterns that will evoke the concept you're trying to illustrate. For this forest landscape, I chose to scribble a repeated pattern with different tones of green, instead of drawing every single tree. This will still be perceived as a forest from afar in the final illustration. Same thing happens with bushes and tree leaves. I don't usually sketch every single leaf. I go there straight with watercolour, tapping a little brush on the page and building up the volumes with different tones. On this illustration of Stockholm, I chose not to draw the brick wall with pencil. It would have been a waste of time. I let the colour do the work. Each one of these short stripes of different tones of terracotta will constitute a brick, and you will see how it's equally effective and how you actually save time and effort. Another topic that I feel like talking about is about style and cohesion. There's literally hundreds of techniques that you can use to create an illustrated journal. But one advice that I want to give you if you decide to start a project like this one is to make a choice of one style with one combination of techniques and stick to it throughout the creation of the journal to make sure you keep it cohesive and coherent. And I tell you, it's not easy because I love to experiment with different media, add different things. Also, I get bored very easily and I want to change things up. But now that it's finished, I'm so happy that I managed to keep the initial idea and way of doing things throughout this journal. I chose to illustrate using pencil, no fine liner, and color it with watercolor and water-soluble pencils. I wanted the illustrations to recall the aesthetic of illustrated fairy tale books that I used to read as a child. So very soft lines, colors between realism and fantasy, and on top of this, the add-on of little Polaroid photos as a window on reality. A bit like in Mary Poppins when Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke dance with the penguins in that cartoon-style scenery. I mentioned watercolor, which is one of my favorite techniques for my journals. Because of its amazing nature of building up layer after layer, it necessarily puts you and your illustrations through what I call the ugly stage. There will be a moment during your work where you look at your illustrations and think, oh my god, this looks awful and amateurish. The lesson that I learned is that you have to be patient and trust the process. Remember to work from light tones to dark tones and progressively add layers. Don't get disheartened and don't just give up and destroy everything like Mudeng when she destroys the food basket. Another reason why I like to finish my illustrations with water-soluble pencils is that they give you the choice of blending them with a wet brush if you want the tones to merge with the layer underneath, or leave them dry for sharper details. So if your illustration looks bland and unfinished, keep refining the color profile, layer after layer. Put the work in it, be patient, and soon you will leave that ugly stage behind. One last lesson that I learned comes from a few mistakes that I've done in the past, also on this journal. For some of these cities that I journaled about, I didn't have journaling notes. I didn't take any. And because I visited these places more than 2 years ago now, while I was working on my last contract on a cruise ship, the memories were not as vivid and fresh. So, important piece of advice, always take a lot of journaling notes while you're on the trip. Don't rely on your memory because memories fade over time. We journal to make time slow down, to cherish moments and romanticize the little things. So, always carry a pocket notebook with you. If you forgot to take notes but you still want to create a travel journal, you can flip through the pictures that you took on your phone and reconstruct a narrative to write. Or you can also consider to make a purely visual journal with illustrations, stickers and scrapbooking elements, just writing little captions here and there. It will still tell a story and you will still have pleasure in flipping through it in a few years. Speaking of flip through, the time has come for me to show you the finished project. I hope you liked this video and this little project of mine. And if you did, feel free to like, comment, share on your socials and subscribe if you haven't already. I think it's time for me to start thinking about another trip to take. Do you have any particular city in the world that is on your immediate bucket list? Let me know in the comments below. This was me, Carlo, and until the next video, take care, be kind, and I'll see you soon.